the smell of burnt coffee. Take a moment. Really imagine it. Not the rich, inviting aroma of a perfect roast, but that acrid, chemical stench of something scorched, the bitter tang of regret that catches in the back of your throat. For Howard Schultz, the man who built a global empire on the sacred promise of the perfect cup, a man whose entire life's philosophy was forged in the intoxicating perfume of a Milanese espresso bar. That smell was the personal scent of hell. It was the soundtrack to his failure, an olfactory monument to a dream that had curdled. It wasn't the smell wafting from a competitor's struggling cafe. It was the smell emanating from inside his own house, from thousands of them, on street corners from Seattle to Shanghai, the very empire he had painstakingly built, brick by brick, beam by beam. He had once stepped away from his creation, entrusting it to others, believing its heart was strong enough to beat on its own. But when he was forced to return, he found the heart wasn't just faint. It was failing. The dream had become a monstrous, efficient, and hollow machine, and its exhaust fume was the acidic stench of burnt bean. And what was the first agonizing act he had to perform to save the life of his patient? He had to begin a brutal amputation. He had to become the destroyer of his own world, wielding the scalpel himself. So this is the question that I can't shake. The question that forms the spine of our story today. How does a visionary, a man who spoke the language of soul and romance, end up as the silent, presiding chairman over the very soulless machine he always vowed to fight? And more critically, when you've lost your way that completely, when you are the one who steered the ship towards the rocks, how in God's name do you find your way back to shore? The man at the center of this storm is Howard Schultz. And the company, of course, is Starbucks. When we hear that name today, our minds conjure a specific image. A global titan, an unshakable monolith of modern capitalism. We see the green logo as a symbol of consistency, of a certain kind of streamlined, predictable success. We assume the story of Starbucks is a straight line, an arrow shot from a garage in Seattle, directly into the bullseye of global domination. But that story is a lie. It's a comfortable, easy-to-digest myth we tell ourselves about success. The truth is infinitely more chaotic, more steeped in pain, and therefore, infinitely more valuable and profound. This is not a business school case study about brilliant strategic thinking or flawless market penetration. If you're here for tips on supply chain management, you're in the wrong place. No. This is a story about a feeling, a single, ephemeral, life-altering moment in a small, crowded coffee bar in Verona, Italy, that sparked a cultural revolution. It's a story about the grueling, soul-testing discipline required not just to build an empire, but to defend its fragile soul from the corrosive acid of its own success. It is a testament to the idea that sometimes you must stay hard and unyielding in your core beliefs, even when the world screams for you to compromise. So, let's discard the boring conventional questions. The big question we are wrestling with today isn't, how did Howard Schultz build Starbucks? The superficial answers are a Google search away. Hard work, good timing, a great product. The real, vital, and deeply personal question is this: what is the one, non-negotiable truth at the center of your life's work? The thing so sacred that you would be willing to set fire to your own hard-won empire, just to save it from corruption? Finding the answer to that question is the beginning and the end of any meaningful journey of self-development. It's the difference between building a business and creating a legacy. So let's forget the romantic beginnings. Let's bypass the triumphant IPO. We must go straight to the heart of the darkness to understand the light. The year is 2008. The world is in financial turmoil, and so is Starbucks. Howard Schultz, who had stepped down as CEO 8 years prior, is back in the driver's seat, and the view from the windshield is terrifying. The stock price had collapsed by over 40%. Sales were plummeting. But these were just numbers on a screen. They were symptoms of a much deeper, more insidious disease. The disease was a cancer of the soul. Starbucks had lost its way. The warmth, the sense of community, the romance, it was all gone. In its place was a cold, hard, and brutally efficient machine. And right there, in that single word, we find the story's most unexpected and terrifying villain. The enemy wasn't a rival coffee chain. It wasn't the economic crisis. The enemy was an invisible, seductive force that had coiled itself around the company's heart. I call it the tyranny of soulless efficiency. This tyranny is a master of disguise. It cloaks itself in the language of progress and common sense. It whispered into the ears of executives that the beautiful, theatrical, Italian-made La Marzocco espresso machines that required a barista to be a craftsman, a performer, were too slow. Replace them, the tyranny urged, with automated push-button machines. It's faster, it reduces training costs, it increases throughput. And they did. The ritual of coffee making was replaced by the push of a button. The barista's art was reduced to a factory worker's task. This tyranny looked at the rich, intoxicating aroma of coffee beans and saw a problem. It was being overpowered by the smell of breakfast sandwiches. To drive food sales, pre-packaged, plastic-wrapped sandwiches were heated in ovens, their greasy, synthetic smell choking out the delicate notes of the coffee. The very soul of the store it sent was being sold for a few extra dollars on the balance sheet. The tyranny's gospel was speed. It preached that the experience was a frivolous luxury, secondary to the transaction. Get the customer in, take their money, get them out. The third place, that sacred, cozy haven between the pressures of work and the demands of home that was Schultz's entire founding vision, had been desecrated. It was now just another stop on a hurried commute, a sterile transaction point with no more soul than a gas station. The result of this spiritual decay was made horrifyingly literal: the smell of burnt coffee. The new automated machines, calibrated for speed and consistency over quality, were often set too hot. They were overheating the milk, scorching the delicate espresso shots. The burnt smell wasn't an accident. It was the inevitable outcome of a system that had chosen speed over soul. It was a metaphor made real. The company was burning its own heart out, one mediocre, burnt-tasting latte at a time. This led to Schultz's Gethsemane moment, a decision so painful it haunted him. It wasn't a simple financial calculation. It was a moral one. He made the call to permanently close 600 stores across the United States. 600 communities would lose their local Starbucks. But more than that, 12,000 employees, people he had always insisted on calling partners, not workers, would lose their jobs. Imagine the crushing weight of that. The man who pioneered providing health insurance to part-time workers. The man who built his brand on a philosophy of a people-first, benevolent culture, now had to stand before his company and amputate a limb. He described it as looking into the eyes of these partners and seeing his own father, who had been chewed up and spat out by a callous corporate system. The guilt was immense. This wasn't just a business correction. It was a profound, personal failure. He had to be the one to let it burn, to cauterize the wound, to stop the bleeding. This was a dark, lonely, and necessary healing journey. In a moment of corporate crisis, the MBA playbook has one chapter: slash and burn. Cut deeper. Be more ruthless. Squeeze every last drop of efficiency out of the system. Focus on the bottom line with surgical precision. Schultz took that playbook and set it on fire. His response was an act of beautiful, commercial heresy. He drew a line in the sand. The profound lesson he extracted from that crucible of failure was completely, gloriously backward. The lesson wasn't, we need to compete more effectively on price and speed. The lesson was, efficiency is the mortal enemy of intimacy, and intimacy is the only product we truly sell. Let that sink in. At a time when his company was bleeding cash and Wall Street was howling for his head, his great world-changing insight was to become less efficient, to become slower, to become more human. He made a move that is now legendary in business folklore. On the afternoon of the 26th of February 2008, he ordered the closure of all 7,100 of his U.S. stores for 3.5 hours. The cost was staggering, an estimated $6 million in lost revenue. The media called it a publicity stunt. Market analysts called it insanity. But Schultz knew it was life or death surgery. Why did he do it? To retrain every single one of his 135,000 baristas on how to pull a perfect, soulful shot of espresso. But it was never really about the espresso. It was a baptism. It was a dramatic, company-wide ritual designed to wash away the sins of soulless efficiency. It was a declaration of war against the tyranny that had taken over his house. It was a powerful message, sent not through a memo, but through a shared, collective action that screamed, "We are a coffee company again. We are about human connection again. We will not sacrifice art for speed." This single, defiant act was more motivational for his team than 1,000 rah-rah speeches. It gave them the clarity they desperately needed. To understand the breathtaking courage of that decision to shut down an empire in the middle of a workday, we have to finally journey to Verona. The year is 1983. A young, ambitious Howard Schultz, then the director of marketing for a small Seattle coffee bean company called Starbucks, is on a trade trip to Italy. He is a man in search of something, though he doesn't know what it is yet. And then, one afternoon, he pushes open the door to a small espresso bar, and his life is cleaved in two: the time before this moment and the time after. I want you to picture this scene with all your senses. This is not a place of quiet reverence. It's a vibrant, chaotic, beautiful performance. The air is thick with the divine perfume of freshly ground coffee, a scent so rich and complex it seems to tell a story. He sees the barista, the maestro, moving with a fluid, practiced grace, an Italian concept known as sprezzatura, the art of making the difficult look effortless. This barista is the heart of the room. He greets customers by name, he laughs, he gossips, he moves with the confidence of an artist. Schultz watches, mesmerized. The hiss of the steam wand as it aerates the milk is a sharp, musical counterpoint to the deep, percussive thud of the portafilter being cleared. The clink of heavy ceramic cups on the polished marble bar. The sight of the dark, viscous crema forming on top of a perfect espresso shot. It was a symphony. And in that moment of sensory overload, he had a profound epiphany. The Italians were not just selling coffee, they were selling a community. They were providing a stage for human connection. This was not a store, it was the neighborhood's living room. A third place, distinct from the pressures of work and the obligations of home. It was a moment of affordable luxury, a daily ritual that elevated the mundane into something beautiful. This was the magic. This was the feeling. And he knew, with a certainty that shook him to his core, that he had to bring this not just the coffee, but this romance, this entire philosophy back to a hurried, lonely America. This became his life's obsession, his ultimate study motivation. He operated with a powerful abundance mindset, believing that millions of people were secretly starving for this kind of authentic connection. But let's apply our Flaw spotlight here, because even visionaries are beautifully imperfect. Schultz's greatest strength, his all-consuming passion and a crystal-clear vision, is also the source of a potential flaw. His love for the company is so fierce, so paternal, that it can manifest as a need for absolute control. When he returned in 2008, he didn't just come back as a CEO. He returned as a savior, a messianic figure on a crusade to reclaim the soul of his creation. This messianic complex, born from genuine love and a deep sense of responsibility, made him the perfect man for the crisis. But it also reveals a man who struggles to let go, to fully trust others with his life's work. In interviews, he has called his initial decision to step down as CEO in 2001 of his greatest regrets. This isn't the cold calculation of a detached executive. It's the raw emotional confession of a founder whose identity is inextricably, and perhaps painfully, woven into the fabric of his company. It shows us that true personal development is not about erasing our flaws, but about understanding how they shape our journey. Focus on yourself, on your own patterns, is the first step. So how do we take this grand, dramatic story and make it useful in our own lives? Whether you're an artist, an entrepreneur, a teacher, or a parent, you can apply Schultz's core insight. We can distill his unique, feeling-first mindset into a practical, actionable framework. Let's call it the Verona Protocol. It's not about coffee. It's a 3-step method for identifying and protecting the soul of whatever it is you're building. Step 1. Identify your personal Verona moment. You must look past your product, your service, your job title. What is the core, non-negotiable feeling at the heart of your work? Dig deep. For Schultz, it was romance and community. For a graphic designer, it might be the thrill of elegant clarity. For a doctor, it might be the peace of compassionate reassurance. You must name this feeling. Write it down. This is your constitution, your true north. This is the foundation for all your SMART goals. Step 2. Engineer the sensory anchors. A feeling is abstract. You must make it concrete. How does your Verona moment manifest in the physical world through the 5 senses? Schultz knew the smell of coffee and the sound of a manual espresso machine were non-negotiable sensory anchors for romance and community. What are yours? If your feeling is joyful creativity, maybe your anchor is a physical workspace filled with color and light. If it's empowering clarity, maybe it's the crisp, simple font you use in all your communications. These small details are not small. They are the rituals that give your work its soul. This is about using practical manifestation techniques to make your intention real. Step 3. Declare relentless war on your soulless efficiency. Now that you know what you're protecting, you must identify its enemy. What is the insidious force in your life or work that threatens your core feeling in the name of progress or convenience? Is it the pressure to answer emails in 2 minutes, even if the reply is shallow? Is it the temptation to use AI to write a heartfelt note, saving time but sacrificing sincerity? Is it the allure of a higher-paying job that would crush your creative spirit? You must identify this enemy, name it, and cultivate the daily discipline to fight it, every single day. No excuses. This is a battle for the soul of your work, and it's a battle you have to choose to fight. And so, we arrive back where we started. In a cloud of that acrid, heartbreaking smoke, the smell of burnt coffee, but now, we understand. We can see it with new eyes. That smell was not just a symptom of a quality control issue. It was a distress signal from a dying soul. It was the smell of a broken promise. It was the smell of a forgotten Verona moment. When Howard Schultz stood before his board, his partners, and a skeptical world, his decision to close 600 stores and halt an entire national operation was not an act of retreat. It was the most courageous offensive he could possibly have launched. It was not an admission of business failure. It was a profound declaration of spiritual intent. It was, in its own strange, painful way, an act of love. He was willing to publicly sacrifice the weekend and the weekdays and the millions of dollars to prove a point. He was willing to amputate a part of the company's body to save its immortal soul. He was willing to face the humiliation and the financial carnage because he understood a fundamental truth. Without that core feeling, that intimacy, that romance, that connection born in a tiny bar in Verona, Starbucks was just another faceless corporation selling a bitter brown liquid. It was nothing. The ultimate motivational message of Howard Schultz's story is not about how to achieve stratospheric success. It is a far more urgent and vital lesson for our times. It's about what you must do when your own success begins to poison you from the inside out. It's about having the breathtaking courage to stop the machine, to stand still amidst the chaos, to look at the beautiful thing you've built and admit that it has become a monster. It's about being truly grateful for the brutal, painful clarity that only failure can provide. It is about understanding that the path to a meaningful life, a meaningful career, a meaningful creation, is never a straight line pointing up. It is a circle. It is a loop. you will find your Verona. And, if you are successful enough, you will almost certainly lose it. You will find yourself standing in the wreckage of your own best intentions, breathing in the burnt aroma of your own compromises. And in that moment, your entire life will be defined by one choice. Do you ignore the stench, blame the economy, and push for more growth at any cost? Or do you find the strength to shut it all down, to inhale the bitter reality of your failure, and to start the long walk back with nothing but the memory of Verona to light your way? True success is not invincibility. It's the resilience to return to your purpose-driven mission. It's the discipline to honor the promises you made to your younger self. What was your Verona moment? What is the core feeling, the sacred promise, that you fight to protect in your life every single day? I truly want to know. Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with one person you know who might be smelling a little burnt coffee in their own life. Let them know it's not an ending, it's an invitation to begin again.